Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Part 820, Quality System Regulations, as applicable in the U.S. This is general disclaimer for your own review, but I'd like to point out that the entire content of this presentation are not intended to be all-inclusive. Today we are going to cover various areas, starting with statutes and regulations, some key definitions, including comparative overview of ISO 13485 and 21 CFR 820, and some auditing strategy, objectives, and planning, and audit logistics, quality management system auditings, audit approaches, and quality management system and subsystems according to ISO 13485 and quality system regulations. It becomes more important than ever concerning ISO standard in connection with FDA, and because of the harmonizing activity globally speaking. Concerning applicable statute and regulations, I was referring to Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. We commonly call it as FFDC Act or FDCA, simply, or the Act. Well, according to FDNC Act, especially concerning quality system regulation that relates to FDNC Act Section 520, that's correspond to Title 21 United States Code, Section 360. It concerns about general provisions respecting control of device intended for human use, and we are talking about the applicable law, that is the statute and FDNC Act sections. These statutory requirements have been implemented well under Title 21 Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Part 820, as we call it as quality system regulation. As an old term, we used to call it as current good manufacturing practice, but for devices, GMP, so little old term, but we more frequently refer to as quality system regulation, QSR. We can also call it as quality management system, QMS, according to 21 CFR Part 820. So some key definition: quality audit, regulatory audit criteria, and audit evidence. When we define some terms, if you are asked by people, how would you define? How do you define audit? Do you just simply say, well, audit means I don't do that. I generally ask, according to which standard are you asking? According to 21 CFR Section 820.3T, quality audit is defined as systematic, independent examination. When we refer to statute and regulation, how would you approach trying to understand and interpret? The way how I do is I recommend we read each and every word so that we can interpret, accurately within the same meaning and scope how regulatory agency interprets. For example, audit. When you do auditing, do you do in a systematic manner? Does your auditors have independence? So basically, that's what it is: systematic, independent examination of a manufacturer's quality system. But then, when we read up to this point, what quality system are we talking about? Well, because this definition falls under 21 CFR Section 820.3T, we are talking about quality system regulations, but then that is performed at defined intervals and at sufficient frequency. Now, when I was at FDA, the industry people come and ask to FDA officials, like, it's great time, let's ask what they say. Well, define the interval and then sufficient frequency. How many times should we perform audit? And then FDA officials smile because Who has the better answer? Manufacturer. So defined interval, you may define based on risk in your company, in your firms, as every 2 months, every 3 months, every 6 months, well, at least once a year. And then sufficient frequency, every year, 2 times a year, 3 times or 4 times a year. You need to define it in your standard operating procedure for auditing according to your risk. For example, if you are getting a lot of quality issues, complaints, a lot of quality problems, then isn't it better you have to meet more often and perform internal audit than every 6 months or 1 year? But if you have complaints or quality problems, very rare, maybe few per 3 months or 6 months, then in that case, maybe every 3 months, every quarterly, or every biannually, 2 times a year would be proper and according to your company's quality system. Basically, defined interval, it is you how you define, and sufficient frequency, it is you as a manufacturer how you define. And then to determine whether both quality system activities and the results of such activities comply with quality system procedures. So you implement, well, you establish and maintain procedures. We have to follow the procedures. And a lot of company, almost becomes too frequent to observe that procedures is one thing, what they do is another. If we are working in FDA